Okay, so this is part 2 of ratio and proportions for Broward College Health Science Bootcamp. So a proportion is an equation that equates two ratios as fractions. So if you want to solve a proportion, the way that's going to work every single time is to cross multiply and then isolate the variable or the thing that you don't know. So let's try a few. X over 56 equals 7 over 8. So we're going to times 56 from the bottom left up to the top right, and we're going to times 8 from the bottom right up to the top left. This is called cross multiplying. So I get the equation 8 times X equals 7 times 56. Now I'm writing this as an intermediate step, which you don't have to write if you can do the math. But the math that I can't do is 7 times 56. Like, that's too hard. I can't do that in my head. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write it out. So 56 times 7. 7 times 6 is 42. Carry the 4. 7 times 5 is 35. Plus 4 is 39. So 7 times 56 is 392. Now on the other side, I have 8 times x, which is just 8x. Now, the thing we don't know is x, and we need to isolate it by dividing. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8. Now again, that's something I'm not quite sure what the answer is, so I'm going to have to do that math. I'm going to have to do 392 divided by 8. So now let's see. I know 8 times 5 is 40, and that's too big. So we'll do 8 times 4. 8 times 4 is 32. Subtract. That gives me 7, and I'll bring down the 2. Now, how many times does 8 go into 72? 9 times. Right? That makes 72. And when you subtract, you get 0, and that's no remainder. So I did this math. 8 divided by 8 is 1, so 1x equals 49. Let's try another one. Let's try n over 91 equals 8 over 13. So I'm going to do my cross multiply, and I'll have 13n equals, 8 times 91. I don't think I can do that in my head. So let me do it real quick over here. 91 times 8. So that would be 8 and 72. So 13n equals 728. Now to break off the 13, we're going to divide by 13. Now 13 was not something from our times tables. So this one we're going to have to maybe do a little bit more work for. Okay, so our end goal here is to do 728 divided by 13. So I'm just going to make like a little note over to the side here. 13 times 1 is 13. 13 times 2, I'll just add 13 more to make 26. 13 times 3, I'll add 13 more to make 39. And 13 times 4 is 52. 13 times 5 is going to be 65. And 13 times 6 is going to be 78. Now that's as high as I'm going to go, because the first step is to see how many times 13 can go into 72. And 78 was too big, so I'll say that it goes 5 times. Oh, sorry, that's not where I put my 5. It goes 5 times. And I know that 5 times 13 makes 65. And then we'll subtract. So 72 minus 65 is 7, and I'll bring down the 8. So now how many times does 13 go into 78? Well, 6 times. Perfect. So it's going to go 6 times. And when I do that math, I do get 78, which means when I subtract, the remainder will be 0. So 728 divided by 13 makes 56. So on this side, I could say n equals 56. Let's try another one. 4 over b equals 64 over 144. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross multiply, but 144 times 4 is kind of hard, so I'm just going to do that over here. 144 times 4. So 4 times 4 is 16, carry the 1. 4 times 4 is 16, carry the 1 is 17. And then 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So 4 times 144 made 576. And on the other side, I've got 64 times b. So now to get b alone, I need to divide by 64. So now the math that I'm having to do is 576 divided by 64. So now I know that 64 times 10 is 640. That's one of the rules we learned, that when you times by 10, you just tack on a 0. And 640 is too big. So let's try 64 times 9. I'll do that over here because that's, again, not something I could just keep adding because of the bigger numbers. So 9 times 4 is 36. Carry the 3. 9 times 6 is 54, 55, 56, 57, 576. So I know that 576 divided by 64 makes 9. Perfect. I didn't even have to, subtract or anything, because when I do this math, it becomes the same exact number. So I'll say b equals 9. Let's try another one. So 72 over 156 equals 6 over q. I'm going to cross multiply. Now doing 72 times q is straightforward because it's just 72q. But 6 times 156 seems a little large, so let me do it out here. 6 times 6 is 36, carry the 3. 6 times 5 is 30, plus 3 makes 33, carry the 3. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 3 is 9. So I have 936. Now I have to divide 936 divided by 72. Now, because these numbers are kind of large, why don't we treat this like we would treat a fraction and simplify it? Because that will also work. So this is kind of a different strategy. 936 divided by 72. Well, those are definitely both even, so let's divide them both by 2. So 936 divided by 2. Let's see, 2 goes into 9 4 times, right? That makes 8, so there's 1 left over. 2 goes into 13 6 times with 1 left over. 2 goes into 16 8 times. Well, 72 divided by 2 is 36. Now those again are still even numbers, so we can divide by 2 again. So I'm going to divide by 2 again until I get down to numbers that are a little bit easier to work with. So 468 divided by 2 would be 234. And 36 divided by 2 would be 18. Hey, those are still both even. Let's keep making the numbers smaller. So I'll divide by 2 again. So 234 divided by 2 would be 117. And 18 divided by 2 is 9. Whew, let me come over here. I'm running out of space. Okay, so now 9 is divisible by 3, so that's what I'm going to go with here. Let's try dividing by 3. Now, if you need to, you just write it out. 117 divided by 3. So 3 goes into 11 3 times, which makes 9. Subtract is 2. And 3 goes into 27 9 times. So the top number is 39. And the bottom number is 3. Now 39 and 3 are both divisible by the same thing. They're both divisible by 3. So 39 divided by 3 is 13. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So when 1's on the bottom, you don't generally have to write it unless we're writing a proportion. So here, we weren't writing a proportion. We were just trying to do division without having to work with large numbers. So 936 divided by 72 makes 13. So Q equals 13. Let's try another one. So 2.8 over K equals 2.1 divided by 1.5. So now, it's not, you could kill all of these decimals by multiplying everything by 10, and that includes the K. But let's review decimal multiplication here. So when we cross multiply, we'll have 2.1 K equals, and I have to do the math of 2.8 times 1.5, which again is not something I can do in my head, so I'm going to write it out. 2.8 times 1.5. So as a review, decimal multiplication, you just write the numbers and do the multiplication and then count how many decimal places you had in the problem total, and that's how many decimal places you'll have in your answer. So 5 times 8 is 40, carry the 4. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 4 is 14. 1 times 8 is 8. 1 times 2 is 2. We add these together, 0, 12, and 4. And now there was 1 decimal place in 2.8, and there was 1 decimal place in 1.5. So that's a total of 2 decimal places. So I need 1, 2. So I get 4.2. Now, to get K alone, I need to divide by 2.1. So let's review decimal division. Okay, 4.2 divided by 2.1. We want to have a whole number on the outside. So we can move our decimal 1 to the right, which means I have to move this guy 1 to the right, and the math becomes 21 goes into 42. And again, if you think about 21 times 1 is 21, and 21 times 2 is 42, the answer to this division would be 2, so k equals 2. Now, let me just show you how to do it if you wanted to use the ratio simplifying fractions idea. So alternatively, to get that 2, we would take the fraction 4.2 over 2.1, and we would multiply each by 10 again to move the fraction, or to move the decimal. So you have 42 over 21. And if doing that division seems intense, look for what goes into both. Both of those numbers from your times table are divisible by 3. So I can divide by 3, and that would give me 14 over 7, and then both of those are divisible by 7. So that gives me 2 over 1. So it still comes out to 2. You've got some options when it comes to division, if you want to do straight division, or if you want to use it as a fraction with the simplifying. Okay, so let's try 2 applications. Pediatricians prescribe 5 milliliters of acetaminophen for every 25 pounds of a child's weight. How many milliliters of acetaminophen will the doctor prescribe for Jocelyn, who weighs 45 pounds? So I know, let's do milliliters on top and weight on bottom as my ratios. So I have 5 milliliters for every 25 pounds. Now, Jocelyn weighs 45 pounds, and I'm not quite sure how much I should give her. So we have to solve this proportion, which is 5 over 25 equals x over 45. So we're going to cross multiply. We need to do 5 times 45, so 45 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25, carry the 2. 5 times 4 is 20, so 225. So 225 equals 25x, and to get x alone, we divide by 25. So x equals, let's do 225 divided by 25. So again, those numbers are kind of big. If you can't do it with division or in your head, you can do it like a fraction. Like each one of those ends in 5, so I could divide both of them by 5. So let's see. 5 goes into 22 4 times. That makes 20, so there's 2 left over, so 2 5, so 45 over 5. Oh, which makes sense because obviously we did 5 times 45. So now we can divide both of those numbers by 5. And that would give me 9 over 1. So x equals 9. So how much should I give Jocelyn? I should give her 9 ml of acetaminophen. Let's try another one. Brianna, who weighs 6 kilograms, just received her shots and needs a painkiller. The painkiller is prescribed for children at 15 milligrams for every kilogram of the child's weight. How many milligrams will the doctor prescribe? So 15 milligrams for every 1 kilogram. And we know that Brianna weighs 6 kilograms. So since we put kilograms on bottom in the first fraction, it also has to go on bottom in the second fraction. Okay, so now I need to solve this proportion. So the proportion is 15 over 1 equals x over 6. So I'll cross multiply. 15 times 6 is, let's see, 6 times 5 is 30, carry the 3, so 90. So 90 equals 1x. And writing 1x is silly, it's just x. So 90 equals x. So what does that mean? That means baby Brianna here needs 90 milligrams of that medicine.